Nick, I want to talk to you about this issue, or not an issue. I'm sorry, an MIT experiment. Shout out to a friend of the show, my guy Suhail. He shared this article on LinkedIn, or shared this post on LinkedIn.
Bring it up.
From I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm gonna say Walter.
Oh, I don't have it up in front of me right now. So we'll go with that.
Let's go with Walter Denayer. And in this experiment, what they did was they tested people's ability to write code, right?
Okay.
And they gave some people. They said that three student teams. They were asked to write software in Fortran or Fortran. I've heard of Fortran, but I did not know Fortran was a programming language. I'm gonna just put that out there.
Well, I think Fortran isn't a language that gets used a huge amount with anything new these days. Fortran is an archaic language.
Gotcha.
I'm probably going to offend a lot of people by saying that, but I think objectively that is the reality.
It's fine. If people are getting offended by opinions about code, then we're in a different world. So one team used ChatGPT, another team used Code Llama, and another team used Google to just search to see how to do it.
Yeah.
The goal was to write a software in a programming language that none of them knew Fortran.
Okay.
So apparently, the team who who used ChatGPT, they finished the fastest, and then the Code Llama team, they finished second, and then the Google team, they finished third.
Right.
But when they tested their ability to recall the solutions from memory, it was in the other order. So the ChatGPT folks couldn't remember, and the Code Llama team, they remembered half of it, and then the Google team, they remembered the most. So in order of finishing quickly, ChatGPT won. In order of retaining the information, ChatGPT lost. I think that was the goal here, because then at the end of the article, Walter, I'm apologizing for butchering his name, but the conclusion from this experiment is simple. There is no substitute for hard work. Don't just rely on AI tools. Learn to code, crash, debug, and repeat. I feel him. I get that totally. But before I dive into what I think about this, Nick, do you have any thoughts about how this experiment played out?
Yeah, sure. I mean, say you need to change the oil on your car, right? And you have no idea what you're doing. And you have two ways of doing it. Number one, well, let's say you have three ways of doing it. So number one, you have to read a manual, and you have to do it all yourself. You have to work it out from scratch. You go through the process. Number two, you have a friend who's good with cars, comes over, talks you through the entire process, and you get it done together. Number three, your friend comes over to help you change the oil on your car. You both crack open a beer. You drink a beer while he does it. You chat. At the end of it, your oil is changed, but you know nothing about how to change the oil on your car. The reality is, under those three scenarios, the objective of getting the oil on your car changed has occurred, and it's just your experience of it has been different. And with the greatest respect to this post, that's all, in my opinion, has been outlined here, that depending on how you go about doing a task, your ability to be able to do it going forward is going to be different. Like if you didn't do the oil change, you're not going to remember how to do the oil change. If you had to sit there and pour through the manual, you're going to have more idea the next time you go ahead and do it. But so what? So what? There are lots of ways to change the oil on your car, and there are lots of ways to code in Fortran. Now that we have AI, it's just an extra tool. And if you want to learn that, then that's great. If you want to spend your time doing that, absolutely no one is saying that because AI exists, you can't learn the things that you're interested in learning and get really good at them. All that we're saying is there's new tools that you can use to do this. We've had the conversation before, Thurman, about, teachers in school, in kind of our day in school, would be like, well, you can't use a calculator for that problem. You're not going to have a calculator in your pocket all the time. Well, sorry, I do now genuinely have a calculator in my pocket all the time. So you didn't get that one right, I'm afraid, math teacher. And I think this is the same thing here, that people get overly concerned about, this new fangled tool has come along. Why would you use a car when a horse and cart is perfectly good? Well, I mean, look at the world now. The car has created its own set of problems, but it's also created its own set of solutions to lots of other issues that existed previously. So I think this is just the nature of some people want to be on the cutting edge, and some people will only adopt technology kicking and screaming. And I think it's wonderful that we can give everyone the opportunity to take whichever path they want.
You know what? So you what you're saying actually goes a little bit along the lines of a different discussion I had with somebody earlier in the week, right? Where they were talking about, they went to I don't know, a waiting room or something like that, or I forgot what it was, but they went to a place where there were other people there. There was this guy, and he said there was like a bunch of other guys there, and he went, and he said everybody was looking at their phone, and have phones made people, what did he say? He didn't say dumber. He said more shy, or giving them more anxiety or something like that. I don't remember what he said, but I responded and I told him, I don't think that the phones have done that. I don't think the phones have caused the thing to happen. I think people have always been a certain way, and that the phones just make it easier for them to do the thing. So let's say you have social anxiety, or maybe you are shy, or maybe you just don't like talking to people.
Yes, but you had to go.
What you say? You had to go
yes, I like those people in the waiting room. You're like, I want to talk to you.
Right. You go to a waiting room, and you're not the type of person who wants to have a conversation, but you also have felt that society made it feel like you're weird or something if you don't want to have a conversation. So in the past, you might have had a book, or you might have had a little crossword thing that you would do, or maybe you would just sit there in silence and think. But the thing you don't want to do is talk. These days, you have something that gives you access to the rest of the world. So all you got to do is reach into your pocket or your purse, and now you don't have to talk to the person to the right or to the left of you. You just have to go into your phone and enjoy yourself. For those of us who do like talking to people, even with the phones, we still talk to people. It still happens. So me, I do like to spark up conversation. I do like to talk to people. If I'm sitting inside of this waiting room, if everybody's on their phone, then I'm gonna be like, all right, you know what I'm saying? Like, whoever I sit next to, you probably don't want to be spoken to. I'll probably just leave it alone. It's fine. But if you don't have a phone out and, we're sitting in silence, I might say something. I might be like, yo, so what's up, your kid? You know what I'm saying? Or whatever. I like interacting with people. I like talking to people. The phones have a small effect on that, but I don't think that they're really driving the thing. So the same thing with this study. It's like, if you were the type of person who would have your friend come over, start to crack open these beers, and then you sit back and let your friend start to do it, that's who you are. You'll always be that person. That's just how you operate until you decide one day maybe you want to change your behavior. So the same thing for developers. A developer who wants to know the language, they're going to do that. They're going to be like, I know ChatGPT is cool, but I'm trying to learn this language, and I might go to ChatGPT if I get stuck. Other people are going to be like, I do not have time for this. You know what I'm saying? But I heard that I can use AI real quick to whip up something. You know what I'm saying? So instead of Googling, maybe I'll just talk to AI and see if I can get some help real quick. This is the reality of life. You know what I'm saying? It's just like that. I don't think that the technology necessarily changes people. I think people are going to people, and then technology will help them do whatever that thing is. You know what I'm saying? Just more,
I think you're right, but I think there's another big piece of this that is really important, and that is, if you call your friend and you want your friend to help you change the oil on your car, right? Do you say, hey, do you know how to change the oil on a car? And if they say to you, yeah, I've done that many times. I do that myself all the time. That's a good friend to have do the job, right? If they say, I've only tried to do it once, and you know what? That car, I don't have it anymore because it just stopped working. It seized up 2 weeks later, right? That probably isn't the friend that you're going to pick for that job, right? That's, you want someone who knows what they're doing. So my question is this: whether they were using Google or whether they were using Code Llama or whether they're using ChatGPT. Number one, you've got people who are doing something potentially of consequence and they don't personally have the skills to be able to do it. So they're learning, they're doing something new, right? When it comes to the AI dimension of this, how are they using AI responsibly? How are they embracing that fact that AI can get this stuff wrong? How are they checking AI's work? Because, we just finished quickly, like we finished quicker. Did they finish quicker with those responsible AI steps? So that they can stand behind the work that AI did, or did they just take the first answer that AI gave them? They stick it in their IDE, they check that it works, and they're like, yeah, this is good. But they've created a huge bug, a security flaw in this code that they're completely unaware of because they don't have the skills to identify that. That is the more important point. Like, people doing things more quickly because they've got AI, that's great. How are you doing it responsibly? And this comes back, it doesn't need to be code. It could be your emails. How are you using Copilot with your emails? Are you getting it to draft a summary and just sending that without reading it? Or are you going through and actually reading it? Are you taking any notice of that little notice at the bottom that says AI can be wrong, please check its outputs, or whatever it says in Copilot or ChatGPT or Claude? They all have one of these kind of CYA provisions at the bottom of the response. But that CYA provision isn't just for Microsoft or for OpenAI, it's for you as well, as a user. I would be interested, I haven't read the detail of this study that you're bringing up, but I would be interested to see, do those gains actually continue to exist in the way that they did if you take those steps of responsibility? And what do those steps of responsibility actually look like?
Yeah, but see, that's the other thing too. This goes back to people. If you're the type of person who cuts corners, right? And not even saying like throughout your whole entire life. Maybe when you're cooking a recipe, you don't cut any corners. You make sure you do everything that you need to do. Matter of fact, there's some people who, for me for instance, when I cook rice, I don't cook rice without rinsing it off. Like, I rinse the water until that water is not cloudy anymore. If me and somebody else were both taught that, and then it stuck with me because I'm like, I understand the reason why I need to rinse this rice, and somebody else is just like, I don't gotta rinse that rice, it's fine. You know what I'm saying? Everything's fine. That is just who they are. You know what I'm saying? That's just who they are and how they make decisions. Maybe if the stakes were higher, maybe they might not cut corners. But fine, whatever. The point is, they're a person and they can make certain decisions. So the same thing with AI. If you are the type of person who, when you get the data back from AI, you're just going to take it at face value and not check on it, that's not the AI's fault. That's you and how you operate with this technology. So you have to make the decision. I tell you what, one of the things that I learned when I first started interacting with ChatGPT was that, yes, it's not all true. And I was trying everything. I was asking it everything. And finally, I'm like, okay, this thing knows a lot, but it gets some things wrong. The best way that I've found to interact with something like ChatGPT or Copilot is to go deep. You can't ask one question and get your answer. Maybe you can if you could do a good prompt, but I don't go in with the detailed prompts. I go in, I have a long conversation because, you know what I'm saying? My brain works that way. So if I've been given a template of a good prompt, I've used it and it comes out pretty well. But I like having a back and forth with ChatGPT where I keep going and keep going and keep going. And then I find out in a lot of cases, I have to go somewhere else. It has hooked me up to the point that I'm good to go, but now I need to take what I've gotten and go to a different source like Google or a person or whatever to really get the full, rich understanding of what I'm trying to, of the information I'm trying to work with.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, and I do think it's the wrong takeaway here is, we're losing the ability to learn, because I can kind of see the argument of, you want people who understand how to grow food or carpentry and things like that for after some coming apocalypse. But frankly, when it comes to computer coding, if ChatGPT doesn't exist anymore, we're not going to be doing much computer coding, because exactly the same problem is going to take both the things down, right? So what problem is it we're trying to mitigate for the future to not use AI to help with these kinds of things? It doesn't actually make a huge amount of sense to me. I think there is a reasonable argument to say that people should have some basic skills. You have times because of natural disasters where there isn't electricity and so on and so forth. But whether or not you're using AI to help with your coding is the very much the first world of the first world problems. It's let's not worry about that, and let's think about everyone else that's using this stuff and using it responsibly and teaching them to use it responsibly. And if we can do that, then if you want to use AI to help you with X because you want to spend your time learning to, I don't know, grow flowers in your garden, you want a bit more time to do that, that's wonderful. Do that. That's what this technology is here for. It's to take away the drudgery of a lot of these things. And a computer is really, really good at holding lots of data that we're never going to cram into our brains. And so let's use that capability, but let's understand the limits of that capability and when you need a human to jump in. That to me is the most important aspect.
I'm with you. I still have my thoughts about, Terminator, but
sorry, I didn't mean to get you back onto that. I know I give you sleepless nights when we talk about this AI stuff.
Listen, the guy who took over as CEO over there at Amazon, a company you probably heard of, he is now ordering everybody back to the office at the beginning of next year. He has
5
his
days
reason,
a week, right?
5 days a week.
Yeah.
So no more of this hybrid business. It sounds like he's putting his foot down. I wanted to get your thoughts on how. What do you think? Where are you landing on this work from home or come back to the office policy?
So I think the idea of this is that by being in close proximity to one another, that helps people to engage with the culture of an organization and therefore helps to maintain momentum, innovation, and so on and so forth, is the argument that people like Andy Jassy are making. And he's not the first one. We've seen this kind of wave come through banking as well. The finance industry has had a lot of this come up. And I think it's interesting, and I think there's going to be a fight that ensues between the average white-collar worker, because you really are talking about office workers, you're talking about information work, you're not talking about someone working in a restaurant or someone working as a plumber. Like those types of roles have to be in proximity to what they're doing. So you are talking about a certain type of work. You're not talking about everything. But someone like Andy Jassy, if you're the CEO of one of the largest businesses on earth, you don't have a normal relationship to work. Like, you don't get to that position by having a normal relationship to work. And it's not that everyone else doesn't fundamentally have the capability. Like, I'm sure Andy Jassy is a very talented man. I'm sure he's achieved a lot. No disrespect to him at all. But I'm sure there are other people who equally are as talented who decide to have a different balance in their life. And for them, being the CEO of Amazon is not something they would want, because it doesn't give them the balance that they want in their life to do the things that they want to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, is someone with that rather odd relationship to work to be the right person or the right group of people to be making decisions, not just about foundationally how that business is going to work, but also what we as humans, our relationship is going to be to work throughout the next year. The work week that we've got right now has been around for a while. You're talking nearly a century. So the decisions that are being made now may well be decisions that are still impacting people who are our grandchildren or great-grandchildren in the relationship they have with work. And I'm just not sure that looking at someone like Andy Jassy and saying you are the right person with the right values to drive this decision making is necessarily right. I don't know what the right way of doing it would be, but I know certainly in some areas government has intervened to look at things like the 4-day work week, to look at right to disconnect laws and so on and so forth. Those things aren't the same, but I do think they're all connected in this discussion of what should our ideal relationship to work be.
Yeah. So I'm with you on that, especially since because he's at the top of Amazon, his decision making could be extremely influential to other businesses and the way they run their businesses. But here's where what I think about this, right? If you remember during COVID, I don't know, midway or maybe early on, when masks became politicized, it was like, I don't wear my mask and I do wear my mask and we enter the same place. And now it's like, I look at you a certain way if you are wearing a mask, or I look at you a certain way if you're not wearing a mask. It became like one of them topics, one of them hot button topics, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like this is where the work from home topic is headed if it's not there already. It's becoming this thing that's now becoming divisive and being used as like from a pulpit to speak and talk down on people. And it's not okay. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of more of the same, especially if you don't realize how everything, when it gets into this realm, you need to take a step back because things have changed. Speaking of COVID, they just have. And, people hate change. That's a normal thing. A lot of people don't like change, or they don't like having to react to change. It's just what it is. You know what I'm saying? But the facts are, the world changed, not America. The world changed after COVID. We were forced to work virtually, and that's just what it was. You know what I'm saying? We had to take care of things virtually. Now, with people, I personally believe that the work from home decision should now become a personal thing. It should not be a work thing. It should be a work thing that they allow that they accommodate. So it's like, when we got laws pushed through that said, hey, you have to have a ramp in front of your building because if someone is handicapped and they come in with a wheelchair, they need to have an ability to get into the flipping building. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a real thing. If they're handicapped, then we need these parking spaces that put them close to the building so that they could easily get inside of the building. You may not hire any handicapped people because they're not applying, but you have to accommodate. You have to be accommodating to make that happen. The same thing. If you have a position or positions in your company that can be worked remote, then you should be accommodating and let the employee choose that, and then adapt. I don't know. Adapt your culture or your processes around the fact that, hey, I might have some folks who do like coming into the office, maybe not every day, but they do. And I have some folks who don't like coming in the office. So now I have to work my way around that. And that's okay. You might even end up in a situation where you don't even have the ability to have people come in because you never started your business with a brick and mortar. Like, you don't have a.
There are businesses like that don't have an office. They just work remotely.
They just work remotely.
But let me ask you this then, Thurman. So if you look at like the technology innovation that's been going on, that really, in some ways, really got momentum when we went through the pandemic. If you look at things like the evolution of Microsoft Teams, the evolution of Slack, look at what Microsoft announced recently with Copilot Pages. I don't know if you've seen the demo of that, but there are so many technologies now that are weighted towards the idea of doing work where you're not physically together and doing work that is asynchronous work. And that seems to be the direction technology has gone in. You can come into a meeting room and utilize Teams. Yeah, you can do that. We have Teams rooms, right? But the default experience, if you want AI to help you and so on and so forth, it actually works better if most of you are sitting at a computer somewhere else. Like the idea of having having a meeting of like 30 people in a Teams room, yeah, it can work, but that's not the ideal experience. And there will be people who deal with the Teams room technology who may be saying, well, it's getting better. But unless you want to throw a lot of money at your meeting rooms, it's actually easier and cheaper just to have people sitting in their offices at home with a laptop to make some of these technologies work well. And so there's this imbalance. And I just think that, the average worker has got used to these kinds of things. And the CEOs have not. And we have not seen any negative impact on these businesses, certainly not in terms of the amount that they're selling, certainly not in terms of the amounts of profits they're making. The stock market is riding high. If you look at companies that are having problems right now, look at something like Boeing, like that hasn't been caused by work from home. Those issues are not work from home issues. So what is the problem?
It's what you said. Forget work from home. Let's say that it wasn't even a thing. Let's just think, 30, 40 years ago. The person who's running the business lives and operates differently than the people who are working in the business. It's just different. The person who's at the top, our days don't look the same. The people at the top and the people who are working in that business, our days don't look the same. And 1,000%, the top of the food chain at Amazon, your day does not look the same as the people who work inside of Amazon. It just doesn't. So you're to your point, you're not really getting this education outside of like on the internet of what it's like for your workers versus you. You might see these guys on the internet talking about, work from home is great or work from home sucks. And you're like, that's stupid. I only work inside of the office. This is where it's at. I got a company to grow, this, that, and the third. And not consider that you are unique in your own business.
Look at the guy who just took over Starbucks. I forget what this guy's name is, but the CEO, he was going to be living, what was it, like 500 miles away from the headquarters, and he had access to the company's like private jet to like bring him to work and so on. And so, if someone was going to chauffeur me to an office, like I'd be perfectly happy with that, I just think that there's this huge imbalance, we have developed business in such a way that the economics for the average person don't make sense as they used to, and if your average worker is able to get done what they were getting done previously while being able to fold their laundry or pick their kid up from school at the right time or attend the soccer practice or whatever it may be, what on earth is the problem with that? And I cannot understand what impact that, like, if Amazon was tanking, then I would get it.
Right.
But Amazon isn't.
But even if they were having security issues is a thing that I think is a real thing. That is something that you could complain about. But I hear none of these top food chain folks complaining about security. That to me should be your number one complaint, like how people are loosey-goosey with their devices or how people are taking meetings in vicinities they shouldn't be taking meetings on, or using public Wi-Fi that is a little shaky instead of using their, company provided hotspot or whatever. Like that to me is a real argument. But I think that, like I always say, with the argument, let's get some training. Let's do some training. A lot of folks don't know the basic things that they could be doing to be more secure with their device, more secure with their practices. Let's work on that. But get away from this. We need to be together physically at a regular time on a regular schedule in order to be productive or even wildly productive and then successful. It's not true. As a matter of fact, you might be missing out, because right now, years ago, I could connect with someone across the country who may be in a different time zone, but they understand the work that I need done and can work with me, and we can build something great. This is the world that we're in. That's just how it is.
There's talent everywhere. I will say, though, that I could be convinced by an argument that says that particularly early career people could benefit from more proximity. Because I do think that there are things that I learned in the first few years of being in the workforce that came from the idea of being in proximity with people who had more experience than me. So I think guiding that experience of people joining the workforce and making that a good experience and a valuable experience, and making sure that they're learning the things that they need to learn about being at work, I do think that I could receive that argument well. But the idea that people who are late career professionals have to be in the same room as someone else to get work done, in my view, is generally just absurd. It's not going to be absurd for everyone, but for in general, I think it's an absurd argument.
Yeah, I'm with you. I got some thoughts on that, but I know we're running short on time here, so I'll just say we can continue that conversation, because I definitely got something I want to say about that. But Nick, before we do get out of here, where can people find you and what you're working on right now?
Come look at my LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Watch some videos here. That's all I got.
Okay. Well, same thing. Follow me on LinkedIn and watch some videos here on YouTube. That's all I got for you this week. You know what I mean? But you know, there's always something cooking. But right now, I'm on the same wave. Just come check me out on LinkedIn and watch some videos here on the SharePoint Help Desk YouTube channel.
Cool.
All right, good deal, Nick. This was good.
All right, until next time, Thurman.
All right, see ya.
Take care.